Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first part of Cebu Novus AP's lecture series. My name is Maggie Fernandez. I'm a debater from the University of San Jose Recoletos, and today I'll be discussing two things. Firstly, and very briefly, on the veto process, and secondly, on how to utilize your prep time wisely. So, yeah, outline of this lecture, the veto process. Number two, prep before the prep. What do we do before the prep time? There are a lot of things that you can do before the tournament, before the motion is released, that can make your prep time later on much more time efficient. Thirdly, when the stuff gets real, so prep time after the motion is released, what do you actually do? Fourthly, on how to deepen the discussion. And lastly, some wrapping up what we expect you to already be doing after the prep time and Q&A after this recording. So let's talk about the veto process. In every round, CAP will be releasing three motions. So one motion set has three motions. Choosing which motion to debate will be done through what is called a veto process. So step number one, within the first 5 minutes of prep, teams will deliberate on which motion they prefer to debate. So in AP debating, you have 30 minutes of prep time. The first 5 minutes of that will be spent doing the veto process. Step number two, motions will be ranked from 1 to 3, 1 being the most preferred motion and 3 being the least most preferred motion. And thirdly, teams will then reconvene in the debate room, or they can just like message the text channel to send in their vetoes. So how exactly do you rank your motions? So from 1 to 3, you rank your most preferred motion as number one, meaning you really, really want to debate that motion. You think it's going to be strategic on your side if you're government, if you're in opposition. Second, you rank a motion two if it's just mid, it's not your favorite, it's not really your most hated motion. And number three, you give a motion a 3 if it's your least preferred motion. If you give a motion a 3, this automatically will not be debated. So automatically that motion is out if you give it a 3. So you have to be strategic on how you do your vetoes because obviously this goes for the other team as well. If they rank a motion a 3, even if it's your most preferred one, then you will not be debating that. Let's present like two scenarios to make the veto process much more clearer. Mm, so comparing vetoes is usually supervised by the room's chair adjudicator or a runner OC. So let's look at the first example then to make the veto process much clearer. Let's say government's veto is 1, 2, and 3, which means that they put the first motion as their most preferred motion and the third motion as their least preferred motion, while opposition's veto is 3, 2, 1. This means that their least preferred is the first motion and their most preferred motion is the third one. So what happens now is that since opposition gave the first motion a 3, then the first motion is automatically out. And since side government gave the third motion a 3, then the third motion is automatically out. This means that in this scenario, that debate room will be debating the second motion. But there is another scenario, which is if both teams veto the same motion. So if you look at the second example, um, government's veto is 3, 2, 1. Opposition's veto is 3, 1, 2. So they both put the first motion in 3. Maybe something's wrong with that motion. Both teams did not want to debate it. So what's going to happen now is that the motion will be decided through a coin toss. This means that whoever wins the coin toss, then they will be debating on their most preferred motion. Let's say side government like won the coin toss, then since the third motion is their most preferred motion, then that room will be debating the third motion. But yeah, That's basically like how the veto process works. There's also a third scenario now that I think about it. It's when both teams have the exact same veto. Let's say side government's veto is 1, 2, 3. Opposition's veto is also 1, 2, 3. They put the same motion as their three, so motion three is already out. But given that they have the same like most preferred motion, then there's no need for a coin toss. That room will automatically debate like both teams' most preferred motion. Okay. Lastly, on the veto process, if a team hasn't given their veto after 5 minutes, then the room will automatically debate the most preferred motion of the other team with a veto. It's kind of unfair if you're going to delay your prep because one team has to send in their vetoes. So if your opponent still hasn't given their veto after 5 minutes, then you will automatically debate your most preferred motion. So that's it for the veto process. If you guys have questions, you can raise them later. And I believe this will also be discussed in the debate briefings by Kuya and Rina later on, and will also be sent with your tournament kits. Now, let's move on to how to prep wisely. So there's a lot of ways that we can go about this, and I just want to preface this by saying that each team has their own strategies. I mean, you practice differently. You probably also have different preferences. But the thing with novice debaters is that I think it's safe to assume that you guys are probably used to your teammates right now. Pro debaters have like a fixed partner that they stick with over the years. But if you're a novice debater, you probably don't have that right now. So what these advice that I'm going to talk about in this lecture are just the general things that generally work for everyone, and hopefully it works for you as well. And this is not like the rule that you really, really have to do this, but these are just things that you might want to try out, and if this might work for your team as well. So, firstly, the prep before the prep. I think there's a lot of things that you can do to make your prep time during the tournament far easier. And it starts before the tournament, and it starts like before the motion is released. So before the tournament, to make your prep time later on much easier, get to know your teammates' preferences. So know if would they want to have like a few minutes to themselves, would they prefer to prep quietly in like the first part of your prep time, or would they prefer being consistently asked questions, for example. I think it's very important that you already set your boundaries, because some debaters really need some quiet time when the motion is released, and maybe your teammates are like that too. But also, this goes both ways. You should also let your teammates know what are your preference when it comes to prep. Would you prefer it if they keep on like giving you guide questions just to trigger the conversation and to trigger more ideas later on? Secondly, know each other's strengths and weaknesses. We hope we can be the perfect debaters that are good at everything, but debaters usually have their own specialties when it comes to motion themes, for example, or when it comes to motion types. Some debaters are really, really good in gender motions, or in IR motions, or in this house regrets motions. I think it's important if you're familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of your teammates, so that if you think they struggle in this specific motion team, you know when to fill in as well. But also, like, that works for you too. If you feel like you're not very good at this specific motion type, then your teammates can like fill in for you. But the gist of this really is just to get to know your teammates properly before the tournament. In our organization, we really encourage debaters to hang out with their teammates. We tell them before the tournament na, oh, go have lunch with your teammate. Just talk to them and be like good friends or something. Like it helps in cultivating the dynamic, makes the prep time less awkward, and when you're more comfortable with each other, then the conversation will just like keeps on going comfortably. Secondly, role setting. There are different roles when it comes to prep time. I believe maybe some of you are already familiar with these things. But firstly, and I think this is the most obvious one, you should already know the speaker positions. I remember being a novice debater, and me and my teammate will switch up speaker positions mid tournament, depending on how confident we are about the motion. And I highly discourage that because, that's going to be really, really stressful for all of you, and also because you practice differently, so it's better to stick with one speaker position and then really try to perfect that. But yeah, I think that's the first obvious one. You already know your speaker positions. Number two, I think it's also preferable if you assign a prep leader. So, what is a prep leader? So, the prep leader is usually the one who initiates the discussion. They cut off people when necessary if they feel like this person is just over explaining their case, and you probably already got it already. So, they can cut off people. They also flag when the prep is too quiet. If you notice that no one is speaking, they will try to initiate the conversation just to keep the ideas coming. And also, I think more importantly, the prep leader makes sure no one pops, no one panics, no one like freaks out about the motion, just to make sure that the prep time is going as efficiently as possible. So yeah, maybe assign a prep leader, for example. It could be anyone. Thirdly, it also helps if you have like a devil's advocate. Well, there's three people in an APT, right? So it helps if there's a devil's advocate, like a member that's really just dedicated to pointing the weaknesses of your own cases. So it's kind of like prepping with an enemy that for every like argument you think for your side, there's one member who keeps on pointing out na, oh, what if opposition says this? Or like, oh, this is kind of weak in these parts. So yeah, it helps. These kinds of roles just makes the prep time, alive. It keeps the conversation alive and makes sure that no one freaks out. So yeah, which brings us to when the timer starts. It's very important that you don't panic. I think based on experience, when we're faced with like really matter heavy emotions, um we tend to think of the worst things like, oh, I don't know what this means. But it's very important to keep your composure. And I think having a prep leader around just like based on personal experience really helps. But yeah, but you only have 30 minutes for prep. This means that, firstly, you need to know your priorities. You need to know what things to talk about first. And I think the most important one is motion interpretation. All three members of the team need to have the same interpretation of the motion, or at least settle on a single interpretation. I think this is the first thing you need to prioritize in order to avoid a lot of miscommunication later on when you're already talking about your arguments. So I think yeah, it's in number four. But before you blurt out everything that comes to mind, you need to keep everything organized first. So make sure that you understood the motion correctly and that all three of you understood the motion in the same way. So it's very, very important, and I can't stress this enough, that you read the motion over and over again because you can have the most fleshed out arguments in your speech. But if that's not what the motion is asking for, then it's probably not going to weigh as much. Secondly, it's to agree on a stance or a direction. You need to agree among your members what direction are we actually going for. Given what we understood from the motion, what do we prioritize in our speeches? So your stance could be banking on the most important stakeholders in this debate. You can settle on the focus in this debate is the well-being of the people on the ground. So your stance is really just every impact that you're going to discuss among all three members is focused on that stakeholder that you chose at the beginning of your prep. But also, it's just a matter of consistency. If you know, if you already agree on one direction, then you're going to stay consistent all throughout the three speeches. Number three, given this is an AP tournament, there's a very huge burden on first speakers to make sure that their framing is flawless. I mean, is there such a thing as a perfect framing? We hope. But yeah, that's the goal. You also need to prioritize your first speaker at the beginning parts of the prep, given that if you're a deputy or if you're a whip, you would still be playing within the framing of your first speaker. So you guys have to agree to the framing. You guys have to agree on the parameters of this debate. Where does this debate take place? Who does this debate affect? Like the stakeholders. What does this policy look like? Just the framing, just to clear out the parameters and just to make sure everyone knows where this debate is happening. I think if you like just fix that first before you go on to the other layers of your argument, this will ultimately make like the rest of your prep time much more like organized. So yeah, there's also a burden on first speakers given that they are the first speakers, they speak first. So it would be nice to have to lend a helping hand on your first speaker when it comes to like framing, characterizations, mech. Lastly, on burdens, this is also an extension to the first thing. What exactly do you have to defend in this motion? And so before you blurt out everything, you before you like say whatever comes to mind, you need to keep everything organized first. So yeah, the first thing is that you have to know your priorities, what things to prioritize given that you do have a limited time. Secondly, on organizing your material. Number one, I think the simplest arguments should come first. The intuitive cases, literally the first thing that comes to mind when you read the motion, because usually the simplest arguments are the hardest to respond to. The simplest arguments are usually the strongest cases. An argument cannot be made with one sentence only. So then now that everything is organized, you know the direction, you know the parameters of this debate. It's now time to make sure that your arguments have meat in it. So an argument cannot be made with one sentence only. I think the common mistakes among novice debaters is having like one-liner arguments. So it's important that you always prove what you say, that for every single thing that you say, you have like an analysis under it, an example under it. So always prove what you say. Thirdly is on preemptions. I think a huge bulk of your cases, especially from the first speakers, should already set the first clash in the debate. So this is where the devil's advocate is most helpful. They're going to think of what the other side might respond to your case and what types of engagement you have to be prepared from the get-go. And fourthly, know the sequence of what you're gonna run. I think I'll expand this later, like by the end of prep time. But that's it. In this part, organize your material. Focus on get to know what arguments you're going to run, and then we add the layers. Now that you know the parameters, you know the direction, and you have your preliminary arguments, you have your mother arguments, the biggest ones, it's now time to add your layers. So during prep time, ask a lot of questions. Guide questions keep the conversation going. So talk a lot, no? Now that you've already settled on what argument you're going to run, how do we improve that? So the general preliminary questions, so these things on the screen are just um prompt questions that can potentially like improve the arguments that you already have. So the general preliminary questions, of course, is what does this motion want us to ask about, want us to talk about? What is this motion about? Think of the intent behind the creation of this motion. Who is this about? Like, what exactly is the goal of this debate? Secondly, what changes in the status quo if we propose or we oppose? I think the debate lingo on that right now is, I think it's what they call delta. But yeah, what changes in status quo if you propose or you oppose this motion? And thirdly, what do we have to prove? So these are the preliminary things that can help like start the conversation. But secondly, on fleshing out cases, more prompt questions. Whom does this affect? Who are the stakeholders of this debate? If there are a lot of stakeholders, you probably can rank them based on prioritization. Who is this like most affect? And secondly, also on fleshing out, why is this good? If it's both good on both sides. Why is this better than what the opposing team can offer? So this is where you can do your comparisons. Thirdly, why is this important? Why exactly are we talking about this? So maybe you can flesh out on your impacts. And fourthly, where does our policy or paradigm fall short? I think it's very important to always think that this cannot be a perfect argument. This can't be a perfect policy. So you need to know where does this like paradigm or policy fall short? And you can extend on two things. How do you fix this? And on your worst cases that you cannot fix that lapse, then why is this okay anyway? Or why is it still better than what opposition could potentially provide? So that's in adding layers. Oh, okay. So in the last few minutes of prep time, you are expected to, number one, know what your teammates are going to run. So in order to be consistent, in order to avoid any contradictions, you need to know what your teammates are going to run. And of course, you have to compare that on what you are going to run and make sure that everything is consistent. Number two, you have to have a clear outline of what you are going to run. So by the end of prep time, you shouldn't be scrambling on what to say. You should already know what you're going to run, what your speech is going to be comprised of mostly. Number three, be wary of weak points in your cases and provide safety nets. Like I said earlier, it's very important to understand that not every argument can be perfect. So you need to know what are the weak points of your argument. And this is also how you can preempt like possible responses from the opposing team. Fourthly, in extension to number three, you should already have a grasp on potential clashes. What might opposition say that will like clash with what we say? And then that's how you can already predict the um clashes is going to happen all throughout the debate from prep time. And like it won't gonna catch you off guard later on. And lastly, you need to know your notes like the back of your hand. If you are using pen and paper, I hope it's still organized. The handwriting is legible. You know the sequence of your papers. And also, it's good. You should leave blank spaces because you have to be flexible all throughout the round. So, yeah, these are the things that you're expected to do like in the last few minutes of prep. And I think if you have these five things, this means that your prep time was productive and it was time efficient. So yeah, I think that's it on how to prep wisely. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, I think present day Maggie will take care of that. So yes, thank you and goodbye.